Hi and welcome to the video. I want to look at this game played by the Indian star Dommaraju Gukesh, or D Gukesh as he's normally referred to for some reason. He's currently playing in the Turkish league and he just seems to be continuing his run from the Olympiad. And he's played 2 games now. In the first round he won against an Iranian grandmaster rated about over 2500. And here he's playing against Esipenko, who's rated 2692. Now, for rating purposes in this game, Gukesh is rated 26, I think 98. The rating he had before the Olympiad, because we still have the same month, so he still can sort of gain rating with the old rating. But his live rating is well in the 2700s now, and with him being only 16 years old, it's comparing actually historically. It's comparing really well with the likes of Magnus Carlsen, Wei Yi, Ferrugia. So maybe we have a future world champion on our hands. But let's see. In this game, he had the black pieces against Andrey Esipenko, a young, strong, talented player himself. And I remember doing a video a long time ago where Esipenko beat Sergei Karyakin quite beautifully at the World Rapid Championship. I'll link to that one. It's worth checking out. A very nice mating pattern that he executed in that game. So Esipenko opened up with d4 in this game, and Gukesh went with knight f6, and we have by transposition queen's gambit declined, and Esipenko elects to go for the Catalan. Of course, we could go for normal lines with knight c3, but the Catalan is a solid option, g3, and bishop b4 check, as Gukesh played, is one of the main lines for black here. Bishop d2, and now a5, protecting the bishop. And play continues normally here, bishop d2 and castles. But Esipenko's next move is not the most normal here. Usually the white queen goes to c2, but he puts it on c1. So I'm sure he had some wrinkle in mind. He's adding extra protection to this diagonal, which comes in handy later in the game. There might be some instances of the c2 square being used by a knight. In some lines where black plays c5, we take with a knight, and maybe you want to jump with a knight here. But overall, it's probably very subtle and something I haven't fully figured out, and I don't think it's interesting for the purpose of this video to truly find out what Esipenko meant with queen c1. But it's not a big difference. The queen is on the c file. It's making way for the rook to d1, which is often very useful, and happens in the game. Bishop e2, castles, and c6. Now the purpose of this early check on b4 is usually just to be disruptive to white's development, and we see that in this case he's played, bishop d2 and queen c1. When, if he had the choice, he would probably put the bishop on the long diagonal, play b3, bishop to b2, and queen c2, knight d2, play for e4. So the bishop has sort of done its job, so black now just stays really solid. Rook d1, knight b to d7, bishop to f4. White tries to improve the bishop, as it was not doing much on d2, but black tries to hit it immediately. But now here's one bonus of having the queen on c1. You can now play bishop g5, which is what Esipenko did. Bishop takes d5 and knight takes g5, and now this knight is protected by the queen, which it would not do if the queen was on c2. Now Gukesh plays b5. He wants to clarify the situation on the queen side. If white were to take on b5, black is quite happy. He would get the tempo with the rook on the c file eventually, and get his own play with bishop a6, b4, and black is probably quite happy. So Esipenko elects to keep the position closed with c5, queen e7, and now white opens things up with e4. And I think objectively white is still definitely for choice here. He has more space, and it's sort of difficult for black to finish development and find a role for this guy. And Gukesh elects to find that role on a6. So in the future, maybe b4, and the bishop might come to life on this diagonal. Bishop goes to f3, attacks the knight, and then pushes the knight with e5. So white is gaining more space here, and probably something like bishop g4, intending f4 would have been the way to play here, trying just to grab all the space. But queen e3 was played, and now Gukesh starts, well, to make his claim for some space here, and he plays g5. And it's always a question when you should be moving pawns in front of your king. In this case, it should be okay, because, well, there's no really good way to take advantage of these weaknesses. There's nothing landing on f6. There's no big problem on this diagonal. There's no big way to attack this. You know, the knight is a long way away from going to g4. The queen is not attacking this. So g5 looks okay. And one of the ideas is to fix this bad piece on e8, which now comes to g7 and then f5. One wonders if white should play g4. It looks terribly anti-positional, but it does play against this knight. So maybe it's an option. I think the computer liked g4. But it's not a very human move to make. And Esipenko went with f4. Now the knight comes to f5, and the queen retreats to c1. Probably it was better to keep the queen around the king side here on f2, because on c1 we're pretty far away from defending the king, as we'll see in the game. f6, now black starts to smell blood on the king side and tries to open up the game. Esipenko takes on f6 and queen takes f6. Knight takes f6 also comes into consideration, sacrificing the pawn and going knight e4 when black's pieces become really active. But Gukesh took with the queen, and he's able to do that because after f takes d5 we have knight takes d4, a nice tactic. And now if you take this guy, I will take here with jack, everything drops, we take this, and then we take an f6, and black is super happy. So bishop g4 was played, getting out of the forking idea here on e2. But now knight f3, and this was taken by the bishop, and g takes h6. So white is a pawn up at the moment, and, well, he has a big threat. He's threatening to play queen here, and then land a big check on g7. So Gukesh plays rook f5. But Gukesh has excellent play. He has the f5 firmly under his control. The pawn deficit is most likely just temporary. This pawn is not going to live long. This pawn is weak. And meanwhile, look at the king. It's very exposed. And it's more exposed than the black king, because we have pieces around that are able to attack. We have the rooks and the queen on the f-file. The knight can quickly come to e5. We can open things up here. The bishop can influence the game through this diagonal. And meanwhile, white is lacking development here, and the knight is on the rim. Things seem to be falling apart here for white. Rook to e1, e5. Just grabbing more space, taking away the f4 square from the knight. White tries to bring some pieces into the game, knight d2, but queen h5. We're hitting this guy and king g2. It looks like on knight f2, black can probably safely just take it. And then play queen takes f2. h2, sorry. And this is not going to be something that white will survive. And remarkably, after king g2 and rook 8 to f8, Esipenko resigned. He's still technically up a pawn, but black can capture this if he wants. Again, this is pretty weak. But it turns out the position is just hopeless. The black pieces are fantastically placed. We can increase, this bishop scope. We can play e4. We can bring the knight into the game to e5, to d3. And the white can hardly move. So to the untrained eye, it looks like a premature resignation. But once you start to look at the position, look at the pieces, and look at the computer evaluation, you start to understand that white's position is basically just hopeless, and that's what Esipenko thought, and resigned the game. At least according to the game score, it makes sense. It's possible that the GTT board malfunctioned and they played some more moves. Quite possible. I don't have that information, but the resignation definitely looks plausible. White's position is quite hopeless, and in any case, Gukesh adds to his rating tally, and he's now flying up the rankings. And it will be interesting to see, where he ends. And hopefully, we'll see him soon in the top events. I didn't analyze a game from round three of the FTX Crypto Cup. Didn't really find any games that I found super interesting. So I wanted to analyze this one instead. And well, we'll be back. I'll try to make a video more or less every day now, and we'll be back maybe with another Gukesh game, up to Sattarov game, or something from the FTX Crypto Cup. And see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.